This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro. Just came out, $350 for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and $300, well, they call it $299, for the 11-inch iPad Pro. Obviously, it's unique. You have the floating iPad here, really well attached with a magnet. Is it worth it? We're going to find out now. But first, a shout out to our sponsor, Paperlike. We did a sponsorship with them about 2 years ago for the last generation iPad when it came out. In fact, I've been using those ever since. They're pretty darn durable, I'll say that for them. And if you notice looking at our iPad in the keyboard right now, if you don't see any glare, it's because it's the Paperlike, which is a matte screen protector, but not just that it's matte, it's supposed to, well, given the name, feel like paper. It's mostly aimed at note takers and artists, creative types who want the pencil to not skate across the slippery glass and feel more like paper, and it does. It also obviously reduces glare. It doesn't show a lot of fingerprints, and they use a nano dot technology, so they say it doesn't wear down the tip of your Apple Pencil. And in fact, like I said, I've been using them since 2018, and it has never worn down my Apple Pencil. And particularly if you are an artist, I really do recommend it. Having used it, it's great for reducing that skating feeling, giving you more control, reducing the glare without making the display look too dull, and obviously it protects the screen as well. Back to our video. So for the 12.9-inch, which probably more of you are considering because that's already close to a 13-inch laptop size tablet, it's compatible with the 3rd and 4th generation. So the 2018 and the 2020 models of the iPad Pro 12.9-inch. For the 11-inch model, it's compatible with both generations, the 1st and the 2nd gen. Now the cutout on the back, because this protects both the front and the back, is the big kind of square for the larger camera cluster on the latest generation of the iPad Pro models, but obviously it still works backwards compatible with the previous generation that had the smaller camera cutouts. In terms of build quality, there's the good and there's the The good part is, boy, this thing is beefy, sturdy, and yes, it is heavy. On the 12.9-inch, it's going to weigh as much as one of your lightest 13-inch Ultrabooks, around 3 pounds or so. The magnets that hold the iPad on are impressively strong. There's no way this thing is going to accidentally fall off. But the idea with that is, if you got it sitting on the table, it really is surprisingly pretty easy to just rip the iPad off when you do want it, grab it and go and just do something tablet-y or show somebody something's on the screen without picking the whole shebang up. The hinge on this, the floating hinge, also very stiff. It takes a little bit of effort, in fact, to move it. That's probably good in the end. The bad news is, you probably heard about this, there's not a lot of backward tilt. So it's fine if you're using it on a table or something like that. Then the tilt is just about the right amount. And the fact that the cantilever design raises it up about an inch actually helps. It means you need a little less tilt. But if you put it down in your lap, then that's typically when you'd want to tip your display back further to see it, and then it becomes a little more dicey. Now, in terms of build quality being sturdy, that's the good part. But in terms of the look and the feel of the product, it doesn't look cheap at all. Believe me, not that. But the material is pretty much the same as the iPad smart covers, which means a grippy, slightly rubbery feeling on the outer surfaces, which is good. It's durable. It's easy to hold on to. It does show some fingerprints, but it doesn't have Apple's usual level of chic frou-frou, you know, for their more expensive products, which this assuredly is. This costs as much as a base iPad, doesn't it? In terms of how it's going to hold up and whether it's going to start to fray or anything like that in the future, I can't tell you because the product just came out. I wouldn't put stickers on it, everyday normal stickers, unless you intend to keep them there because it probably might damage the outer surface. But if you want to get something like a D-brand skin that's made to go on there safely and not harm it, definitely. And that could certainly improve the look because it's pretty dull. It's available in your choice of black, or, well, black. It does come in 15 different languages, though, so worldwide you got your options there for the proper keyboard. The keyboard connects via the smart connector on the back of the iPad. Basically, the little pogo pin connectors there. It requires no power, no batteries, no charging, so it's low hassle in that respect. It does have a USB-C port, and that's for pass-through charging of the iPad, but not for data. So if you want to connect a SD card reader or something like that, you'll still have to plug that directly into the iPad, but that port is not obstructed. It's still readily available. So speaking of the keyboard, it's backlit in white. That's controlled automatically. So far, it's worked reliably for me. I haven't had any glitches with that, and the level of backlighting has been appropriate. There's no FN row up top or multimedia control keys, which would be really nice. You still have to reach out to your screen or use the trackpad, which we'll talk about, to control things like your brightness and all that sort of thing. But I can see why they did it. They wanted to give you the largest keys possible, so it doesn't feel like a netbook of old or something like that. There's just not enough room for them to add another row of keys. There's that. There's no escape key, kind of weird. But there is, under the general settings on iOS in the hardware keyboard section, a place where you can remap the command or the option or the globe key, you get the idea, to be the escape key instead if you need that. In terms of feel, it's the Magic Keyboard. So here we go again, 1 millimeter of travel, the same thing we've seen on the 2020 MacBook Air and the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Scissor keys, no more butterfly keys, totally normal. It's night and day compared to the previous keyboard folio, the one that's $179, with the strange fabric-y keyboard with not much tactile feel. This is quite nice. That trackpad, so here's the thing. I have never really succeeded in using the iPad Pro as a laptop replacement. In part, that's because the file system is still kind of annoying, and also because some of the programs I use, like Photoshop, I need all the Photoshop features, not just some of them. But let's face it, a lot of the time we spend these days doing something like video conferencing or spending time in Office documents or Apple's alternative to Pages, Keynote, and all that sort of thing, streaming videos. It's perfect for all of those things, but the ergonomics were never very laptop-like. I've tried third-party keyboards, I've tried Apple's own previous Folio keyboard, and none of them really cut it. They were either bulky, made it was hard to take the product in and out, and there was no trackpad. With the trackpad, which doesn't exactly work like a trackpad, but it's a new experience. Suddenly you're not reaching out to the screen constantly. The trackpad feels really good. The first thing I noticed was like, wow, this is responsive, you know? It's every bit as responsive as a MacBook trackpad would be. But they changed some things up, which you may know already. So instead of having a little teeny-weeny cursor, which doesn't really make sense in a touch-centric OS, you have a little round circle, not super little though. So you select your icons if you want to launch, and when you're doing things, it highlights windows as you mouse over them. It just makes it easier to use at the same time. But when you are doing things like typing in a document, then you get your usual bar cursor so you can easily edit text, which is something that is a little annoying sometimes even with the Apple Pencil or with your finger, just because of the stretch and reach you're doing if you're using it in some kind of keyboard. So that is well done. It almost convinces me I could use this as a laptop replacement. I probably could if I didn't need Dreamweaver and all the features of Photoshop and some other things, but for those times when I have everyday business use cases, it would be really very usable. So yes, for me, it makes the 12.9-inch iPad Pro feel like a laptop. It's pretty darn convincing and enjoyable experience. The 11-inch, I mean, I leave that up to you. That's getting a little bit small and netbooky, tiny original Chromebook sizey kind of thing. I'm a little less sold on that proposition. The price, and this is the thing with Apple products, right? This is not cheap. This is almost as much money as an iPhone SE 2020 edition, which is a lot of money. The iPad Pro is already pretty expensive. I guess they figure if you're well-heeled enough to afford one of those, you can throw $350 at something that can turn it into a laptop replacement. Is it a great value? No. In terms of the utility, it could be, if you already own the iPad Pro. But obviously the other argument is you could get a MacBook Air for the same price as your 12.9-inch iPad Pro plus the keyboard case, right? Or the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 that we have. Okay, that one's still probably a little bit more pricey, but you get the idea here. But those of you who want the touchscreen experience, you really like iOS, you like the incredibly low maintenance experience of iOS, for example, that can make some sense. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.